What's up, YouTube? Um, in this particular discussion, I'm probably going to be all over the place. There's a lot of things that I want to touch upon, but the main focus that I want to probably address would have to be the discussion on race and racism. Whatever. I know I get criticized a lot by my girlfriend because she's always like, "Why are you so infatuated or intrigued with racism? Why is that your go-to point of interest?" And I said, for the same reason why you sit and watch all these shows on A&E with all these crimes and stuff like that in the white community and stuff. Because ironically, and funny as it may sound, when people always want to make reference whenever you talk about certain topics, especially with police shootings in the black communities, and you hear on certain channels or you go to read the certain comments in the comment section where people are so quick with the condescending rebuttals to say, "Well, what about the black on black crime? It seems like you guys are complacent with the black on black crime. It don't seem like you want to do anything about the black on black crime. It's just out of control and it's just ridiculous. And look at the things that the law enforcement have to deal with when it comes to you black folks and the gang violence and stuff like that. But you guys never talk about that. You're always talking about when it's a white officer killing a black guy and this, that, and everything else." But when I'm sitting alongside my girlfriend and I'm watching shows with countless examples and incidences where white people are offing each other off, whether it be just friends, family members, strangers, things of that nature. Man, there's a variety of episodes to each individual show. I'm like, okay, so there's an example that I could use as a rebuttal to counteract that statement or that question in reference to the black on black crime. Um, why am I intrigued with things dealing with race? Partly because I grew up sheltered to a certain extent. I grew up in an all black household. I was an adopted child. I said many times before in other videos, I am a person who's half black, half white, through the biological parents that brought me into this world. Um, but a lot of the things when having discussions with other people, when you're talking about certain things, and you come to find that the level of ignorance that you yourself have because you don't know. There's things that I'm learning constantly through interactions on YouTube, me having to look certain things up, and me doing my own research and things like that. It's like the knowledge that I didn't have, I'm acquiring. And it's, being a building block. Um, Among a lot of things that people discuss and point out, you start to see some of the ignorance on other people's end and the lack of knowledge that they have about certain things. And they just only go through the traditional of what they hear through social media or what they see on the news, or the common pattern of responses that you could tell is based on the bandwagon jumping. They don't take a step back and think for themselves. Certain people that I have discussions with, oh, I antagonize the hell out of them intentionally because I want to get that rise out of people so I can have that conversation honestly. So I can see where they're coming from without the condescending remarks and have an actual open intellectual dialogue to say, hey, okay, I didn't know that this went on over here. Educate me on this. I mean, what are the details going into this particular subject matter? Whereas what I know, based on the information that I've done, learn in dealing and having these open dialogues and stuff, I can share some of what I learned. You know, um, Case in point, I like to play the devil's advocate on a lot of things. You know, I'm not dismissive as most people are comfortable with being when it comes to tragedies. I like to practice balancing the scale, seeing things from both sides of the perspective. You know, I don't just want to have that one narrow, I can't see over here, I can't see over here. I'm just focused like this and can't nothing deter me from my opinions and my perspective and my point of view on things. I don't I just have to entertain the echo chamber. I cannot allow any other information coming in that might make me look at things in a different perspective. That's entertaining ignorance. Um, a lot of people tend to ask me, well, you seem to come down hard on white people. You know, I mean, you say that you're mixed, that you're half white. Well, why do you feel a certain way? To an extent, yes. To an extent, no. I've always stated, and I've been trying to advocate this, I don't like generalizations. So when I speak on white people, I like to speak on the particulars, not using a blanket statement, not utilizing the umbrella perspective. Um, I like to touch upon particulars because I've always used examples of how diverse white people are based on cultures and stuff. Um, in reference to me saying something in reference to white folks is basically a rebuttal to their condescending, arrogant remarks in reference to black folks. Is 9 times out of 10 me responding to other people's ignorance to show the hypocrisy. And on the flip side of the coin, I'm the antagonist on black people as well. Because there are black people that say some ridiculous, outlandish shit in reference to white people that I'm like, time out, time out, time out, pimping. uh, if you can apply that logic to white folks, how does that make you or I exempt from the same ignorance that you're criticizing them for? Um, a lot of people ask me the question about well, why aren't black people successful today like other cultures or races and stuff like that? And I said, well, you gotta look at how the system and the mindset of people are and how they operate in this country. Okay, case in point. Told you I was gonna be all over the place with this. Um, you look at certain communities like the Jewish community, they have their own community. You go to certain areas like in Houston or New York or whatever, you have the Asian community. They have their own community with their own signs on the roads that are in their language and or whatever. You got the Amish community. Um, you got the Hispanic community. It's like we're diverse, but we're segregated. You know. But no one argues against that. No one frowns upon that. No one exposes or put the spotlight on that. It's like it's accepted. Okay, they want to be in their own community, whatever. But then here recently, you had these black people that purchased land. I believe it was in Georgia. And who did they get criticism from? It wasn't from the Asian community. It wasn't from the Jewish community. It wasn't from the Amish community. It wasn't from the Hispanic community. Who did you think had something to say about it, to criticize them for it? But then these are the same people who want to tell black people to pull themselves up by the bootstraps. Why don't you invest? Why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? But then you got to start somewhere. You got to lay out the foundation somewhere. But you can't even lay out the foundation without the cement drying up before somebody want to put their fucking footprint in and leaving their fucking mark on it. There's a lot of things I question on behalf of white people asking those questions. being specific now. Um, I look throughout time. I'm 44 years old, and we use the example, or I like to use the example of Black Wall Street, of how we had a thriving community in Tulsa, and based on a particular incident, that shit got bombed and burnt down. And I don't think it has recovered to this day. Um, but fast forwarding to the present, with all the black entertainers, black athletes, black entrepreneurs, and other people that are wealthy in the black community, whatever. To understand how investment works, there could have been banks built. There could have been a stock market. There could have been something as a foundation reset so that the opportunities that weren't available to black people, because we're always looking at white people as, oh, we got to be dependent on you guys to, keep us afloat, or have to rely on you for certain access to things. But we could have done that ourselves by now. There's no excuse or reason why we couldn't have. But to understand investing, it seems like, you take Michael Jordan, for example. He is affiliated with Nike. He got his own restaurants in the casinos. I think it's either in Foxwood or Mohegans. My sister had told me when she was working there in Connecticut. Um, Investing in a brand versus investing in people, I'm using that example to say, okay, so Nike, how are their shoes being produced, manufactured? Are black people, making these shoes? Do they have a job for each pair that are like 100, 200, $300 a pair? Are they benefiting off of that, or just one man benefiting off of that? Um, Now I'm just saying, because these are things that I notice, that I question. Um, there are certain things in society that I question, because a lot of it doesn't make any sense. I don't entertain jumping on bandwagons. I got to a heated discussion because someone tried to say that I was a sellout because I didn't support the Black Lives Matter organization. Um, the movement itself, I understood, I was on board with, but the organization, again, this is going back to me pointing out the example with Nike and Michael Jordan. I don't really jump on responding or making comments on something until I've got enough information, or I saw that there was a particular pattern that didn't go unnoticed, that was actually noticeable. And what I noticed is that when you had media attention focused on particular cases concerning black tragedies in reference to law enforcement, that seemed to be the only open opportunity for particular lawyers to come out and represent, or Black Lives Matter to go out and protest. But there are countless other incidences that have yet to be touched upon, that have yet to see Black Lives Matter addressed. Like Ricky Manor pointed out, what about all these kids that are coming up missing? that no one has really highlighted on? What about these lynchings of black people that the police rule as a suicide automatically? But then people with common sense can look at the person, their loved ones that had died tragically by a lynching, basically, and say, how is that ruled as a suicide when certain things don't add up? So now you got the feds to have to come in and do their due diligence, whereas the police just didn't want to fucking do anything at all. I'm just saying. Rights and freedoms. I don't I don't that right there I find to be a good example of where conflict and controversy and hypocrisy lies. Because I look at when people protest and how people frown upon that, but then giving the examples of how, people say, oh, they're causing a disruption and this, that, and everything else. But then you're looking at the Trump campaign, how they're acting alongside parallel, similar to the Black Lives Matter protests being criticized. I'm just saying. The right to freedom of speech without people getting offended and stuff. How are you going to have a decent, open, honest conversation if people are going to be all in their feelings instead of sitting down, closing their mouth, allowing the other person to speak, listening, trying to understand what is being said so that you could process what is being said and then respond without being, how shall I say, condescending, responding with a lack of empathy, or being just outright disrespectful. I mean, like I said, I utilize YouTube as a form of therapy because these are a lot of things that I think about in my spare time that I like to address, that I like to have conversations with people about, but I can't because I believe YouTube should, how should I put this? Should adjust their algorithm or how their channel is set up to where people should not only be in the comment section, well, aside from when you go live and you're able to, communicate that way, but there should be like a bunch of panels where people can have open dialogues, even with people that you might criticize, and have them come on and, them being pressured to actually answer questions that they duck and dodge from because they're so comfortable with their platform and people always agreeing with them and no one else is challenging them. I'm just saying. I don't know. But I don't know. I just felt like I need to get some shit off my chest, and there it is. Anyway, until next time, until next video.